Money doesn't change anything, it reveals everything. So, very simply, that one of the pieces of advice that I've been giving for many years came from Warren Buffett. If you want to talk about generational wealth, not
Hmm.
many better people to listen to than Warren Buffett. And one of the things he's known for saying is, I want to give my children enough money so they can do whatever they would like to do, but not so much that they can do nothing.
Welcome back to Investing for Generational Wealth, the show where we go beyond the spreadsheet into what actually keeps money and families together over time. I'm John Lyon, co-founder of Clive Capital. Every week I sit down with someone who's spent decades mastering an asset class or a discipline our listeners, the engineers, the doctors, consultants, and financial professionals usually never get direct access to. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer as always, we're not financial advisors. All investments are subject to risks, including the possible loss of the money you invest, so please perform your due diligence before making any financial decisions. And of course, consult your CPA, your attorney, before beginning investments. Normally we're talking cap rates, K1s, IRRs. Today is a little bit different. Today we're talking about the single biggest threat to a family's wealth, and it has nothing to do with the market, taxes, or your trust structure. Here's the stat that should stop you cold. 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the second generation, 90% by the third. That happens even with the best lawyers, the best CPAs, the best financial advisors in the room. My guest today says the real threat is something almost nobody is looking at. Joining me today is Dr. Noah St. John, known worldwide as the Caveman Conversion King. Since 1997, he's helped his clients add more than $3 billion by removing the subconscious barriers that block success. He's a TEDx speaker, a 27-time published author in 18 languages. He's also the creator of the Air Readiness Test and Neural Legacy Protection. We'll get into that. Dr. Noah, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Great to be here.
Before we get into the heavy stuff, give our listeners the 30-second version. Who is Dr. Noah St. John? How does a guy end up being called the Caveman Conversion King?
I help my clients, as you mentioned, not only make a lot of money, over 3 billion, well over $3 billion now since 1997, but more importantly, I help families really keep that generational wealth. So I do two things. And I use the football analogy. I live near the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so it works out really well. So I help people with offense and defense. All right, offense is building wealth, defense is protecting wealth. All right. So a lot of people are really good at offense. They've made a lot of money, but their defense is really bad. And so they end up losing it. Of course, the classic story of the lottery winners, right? They make all this money and it's gone within 3 to 5 years. But also professional athletes that I coach and I work with, they in many cases making millions or tens of millions of dollars. And the numbers are really bad in terms of the number that end up bankrupt or broke very shortly after leaving whatever league it might be, whether it's the NFL or Major League Baseball or soccer or what have you. It really does come down to offense and defense, building that wealth, which of course we all want that, but you've got to get the defense on the field there. You've got to make sure that you have everything in place to protect your wealth. But what I do that is different, as you mentioned, is I help people do both of those from the inside out. Most people listening to this program already have all of the trusts and attorneys and all the estate planning, and that's great. You have to have that. But what I do is I come from the inner game, as I call it, which is also known as the neural architecture of the brain, but also of the different generations. That's pretty much what I do, and that's my specialty.
Thank you for that background. So if we get into it, you're famous for helping high net worth individuals and families tame that caveman in the brain. What does that actually mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned I'm known as the Caveman Conversion King. And if we think back to us as human beings, all right, so we humans have been around for about 200,000 years, give or take. All right, so about 10,000 generations is how long this human being, Homo sapien, has been around. Okay, now in that amount of time, the interesting thing is, of course, our world has changed a lot in the last 10,000 generations. But the architecture of the human brain and body has not really changed that much. over the last 200,000 years. So what I like to teach my clients, whether I'm doing keynote speeches or working with my clients one-on-one or in group settings, is what I call the caveman in the brain. So the caveman in the brain is basically that 200,000-year-old structure that's been around for all these years and really just hasn't changed that much. For the people listening to this program, I want you to think about what's going on right now today for every single person listening to this. So we have this, as I call it, caveman in the brain, right? That's just there. And it's not going anywhere. It's been there for a long time and it's going to be around a long time. But what do we have going on right now? Right now, we have the fastest technology that's ever been invented by mankind, which is artificial intelligence, AI, right? So many people listening to this program are doing a lot of things with AI, and that's really great. I help my clients with AI all the time. I use it every single day. It's an incredible invention. Now, I've been around since 1997. So I started my company, successclinic.com, in a 300 square foot basement apartment in Hadley, Massachusetts, with $800 to my name and a book on HTML. So I had nothing. I had no business, no money, no marketing, sales, none of that experience. I just had one thing, and that is a dream to help people, to make a difference, to make an impact. As Steve Jobs put it, to put a dent in the universe. And that was my dream, just like he started in his garage and Jeff Bezos and all those guys. So I started in this little basement apartment. And so I was there at the beginning of the internet revolution. If you think back to the 90s, and I'm sure a lot of people here have been around, but remember being online and with the, right, remember the dial-up and everything. So the internet revolution, which I was really at the beginning of, took about 7 years, if you think about 7 years to really reach its zenith. Here we are in the second revolution, the AI revolution. That's only taken about 7 months. So it really, everything is moving 10 times faster. So what's fascinating is you have this caveman in the brain, this 200,000-year-old brain that we have, versus the fastest technology that's ever been invented. And they're clashing. There's a battle going on, and the battle is right within your brain. So this is a big part of what I help people with, not just AI, but it's a manifestation of that, if you can see what I mean. We have fast-moving technology, the fastest technology we've ever had, but we still have a caveman in there. And that's where the battle is happening right now. That's one of the places.
Got it. Okay. I still am trying to grasp the caveman in the brain and how that actually stops someone who, by every external measure, may have won, and financially as a W-2,
Right.
maybe the seven-figure portfolio, the corner office, from maybe achieving the lifestyle they want. What is that caveman in the brain actually doing, or how is how's that manifesting in action?
Absolutely. So when we think about that caveman, a lot of people come to me, they hire me, whether I come in to do keynote speeches or coaching or training, one-on-one or groups. They say, Noah, we've got all of these external things and we've applied all of these technologies, whether it's estate planning, whether it's AI, whether it's the trust, whether it's all of these external things, which I call the outer game. All right. So the outer game is absolutely essential. You have to have all of these things in place. But what happens is nobody is teaching them how to master their inner game. Okay, the inner game is, one example is the caveman that I'm talking about. So let me give you an example from one of my clients of what I'm talking about. So I was speaking at a seminar in Los Angeles for 1,000 entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, founders. These are 7 and 8 figure founders, high net worth individuals, and they represent high net worth families. And so I spoke for about 30 minutes. I was walking off the stage, a man came up to me and he said, "Hey, Noah, you are the coach I've been looking for. I want to hire you as my coach." Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. True story. You can watch his video and many others on my website. But anyway, he said, "Noah, as you were talking," he said, "I realized that everything you were saying is my story. Everything you were saying, because," and he told me the story of how he has this company and he grew to 4 million in revenues, 7 figures, really fast, but he'd been plateaued for the past 4 years at the same level. Now, most people would say, "Hey, 7 figures, that's great." And it is great, but he knew he was capable of a lot more, but something was stopping him and he didn't know what it was. So he told me that he had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. He hired all these marketing and business gurus and all this stuff, but he couldn't break through that ceiling. And he said, "As soon as I heard you speak, Noah, about your inner game and outer game and caveman and everything that you just said," he said, "I knew you were the coach I've been looking for." So he literally hired me on the spot. That's why I love working with high achievers, right? They make decisions quickly and firmly. So I coached him and his leadership team for 18 months. And in that 18 months, do you know that we were able to scale his business that had been stuck for the previous 4 years to over 20 million in
Wow.
revenues? A
Wow.
600%.
Right.
600%.
That's fantastic.
That's what we like to call hockey stick. Because
Right.
you're going along like this, and then we install my caveman, and then the caveman conversion king, and then we go, "Wah!" And it just went through the roof. Think about this. Most people would be thrilled at a 10% increase. 15%, you're popping champagne. 600% we got him in
Right.
less than 18 months. And how did I do it? By showing him how to tame the caveman. So, see, he didn't know that it was holding him back. In fact, for those of you listening, when you go to my website, go to noahstjohn.com, you can actually take the caveman calculator and you can calculate for yourself. It's a free calculator. Just all you have to do is enter three different numbers, and it's right there on the homepage at noahstjohn.com. And it will literally show you, the caveman calculator will show you how much money you're losing every year to the caveman, right? And if you don't tame the caveman, that's going to keep stopping you. Again, remember, this is all in the subconscious part of the brain. Because if you think about one thing that the caveman represents, it represents fear. But humans, of course, have always felt fear. Fear's always been there and it's always going to be there. But how do we react to that fear? How do we respond to it? Most people, when they see something that scares them, what do? Of course, they don't do that thing. Now, that's a natural and in many cases smart thing because that fear comes from many years ago. And so if you think about the caveman days, you feel that fear and it's probably justified. That could be a saber-toothed tiger there in the bushes coming to eat me, or a woolly mammoth is going to stomp me to the ground. Now, we don't have woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers anymore, but nevertheless, we still feel that fear. And for many people, that is the very thing that's stopping them. So that's just one simple example, but it's a powerful example of how the caveman can be affecting you and you not even know it.
Got it. I love that story, that background. I think that crystallizes for me like
Yes.
what and how people are thinking when they're thinking about that or using that caveman mentality. And I think a lot of our listeners are and fit that exact profile. They're high earners, they're disciplined savers, 70 in stocks and bonds their whole career. And a lot of them are 1 or 2 years away from the fire number. What and where does the caveman show up for someone sitting in that exact seat? What I guess it would be everything they do in their daily lives. The caveman mentality does show up unless they've been able to surpass that somehow. Is that correct?
Yes. And what I will say is, I just mentioned about the caveman calculator. When you go to noahstjohn.com, I really encourage everybody listening to this program to run your numbers. And it's right there on the website. But then there's also a secondary thing, which is called the caveman quiz. And what you do is you answer 8 questions and it will tell you what type of caveman you are, what
Oh,
type of
okay.
caveman may be running your brain right now without you knowing it. Now, what I've done is after 30 years of helping people make a lot of money, protect wealthy families again with that offense and defense, so helping you make money and protect the money, I've identified 4 different caveman types. So what's interesting is that everybody's different. So what one person might respond to a stimulus in one way, the same stimulus would affect someone else in a very different way. So I really encourage everybody listening to this to go to noahstjohn.com and take, not just run the calculator, but do that, and then take the caveman quiz and determine what of the 4 types of caveman you are, what type of caveman brain is running you unconsciously right now. And this is, I just want to reiterate that because none of this is on the conscious level. Everybody knows, and everybody's listening to all these gurus, and they say you got to stay motivated and set your goals and think positive. All of those things are right, but that's the problem. You've heard them a million times already. And why is there still something there? Why is there still something that you can't quite put your finger on that might be holding you back? It's what I've been teaching my clients for 30 years now. All right, is that it's that subconscious thing, just like Adam, that story I just told you. He was obviously very smart and he'd done very well, got his company to 7 figures. But why was he stuck for 4 years? And how was I able to get him unstuck to the tune of 600% increase in less than 18 months? It has to do with the subconscious. Again, I'll refer to it as the inner game. So everybody I know listening to this program is very good at your outer game, like Adam and really everybody who I've ever coached. They're good at outer. Think about the professional athletes. Obviously, very good at outer game. But then going back to what I said earlier, why are they broke 3 years after leaving the league? It has nothing to do with money management. Yes,
Yep.
that is a part of it, but you can tell someone how to manage their money till you're blue in the face. If they haven't learned how to tame the caveman in the brain, they're going to lose it anyway. So take the caveman quiz, determine which of the four you are. And then, of course, if you want to talk to me or one of my coaches, we can have that discussion and see what happens next. But it's really crucial that everybody understands that these are subconscious things. That's one of the reasons why I have people many times, grown men in tears in my seminars, in my workshops, and my coaching. They'll literally be in tears. And these are professional athletes, big, strong guys, and they're crying because these are things that have been bottled up for years or sometimes decades. And so it's really crucial that we get it to the conscious, because that's how we can change.
Got it. Got it. I see. And then just a follow-up question on the 4 different types of cavemen.
Yes.
Depending on the 4 different types, I would imagine there's different approaches to helping them realize, A, to recognize those 4 different types, and then B, to then transition them to resolve that caveman mentality. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So the 4 different types, I'll just tell you what they are,
Sure,
and then
yeah.
go make sure you take the caveman quiz and see which one you are. But you can guess just by me saying it, but make sure you take the quiz. But so the 4 types are the chief, the spark, the keeper, and the watcher. Now, the chief is like exactly what it sounds like, the chief, the wham, let's get it done, that commander-in-chief type, just damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. So what's interesting about these 4 caveman types is, of course, everybody has their pros and cons. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. The chief's strength, for example, is an action taker. Like Adam was a chief. He's like, let's go, let's do this. And that's great. And that got him to a certain point, but then he just kept hitting a ceiling. So one of the weaknesses of the chief, for example, would be like, because they're so used to doing everything themselves, they think they have to do everything themselves. That will get you so far, but then after a while, you can't break through that ceiling. So that's one example. The spark is exactly what it sounds like. They're like, hey, kind of the life of the party. They can sell ice to an Eskimo, that type of person like that, which I'm not that. I'm always jealous of somebody who's like that. I'm like, wow, I wish I could be more like that, because I'm actually the watcher type, which is the kind that sits back and watches. So I'm more like the watcher. If you think about cavemen, this is really funny, because if you think about the chief, right? So think about there's a woolly mammoth there, right? And that represents dinner. Okay, there's dinner right there. And if we don't eat, we're going to die. So what does the chief do? The chief goes, let's go get him. Ah! And like, he gets everybody to charge. So that's the chief. The spark is going to go, hey, everybody, let's go get him. And he's trying to get everyone together. Then the third type is called the keeper. And that's the keeper of the flame, like the family. So what's most important, the keeper, is that family. There's relationships. And so they're going to have a discussion about it. How should we attack the woolly mammoth? Why don't we hear what everybody else has to say? And that's the keeper. And then the watcher type is just the one that's going to study the woolly mammoth for 3 months and learn all of his patterns and write it down and put it on the caveman wall. Say, okay, so here's where he comes from and here's where he goes. So everybody's different. And it's really fascinating to work with different types of people. By the way, when I do my keynote presentations at live events or seminars, what I do, one of the things that we do, which is so much fun, is I have everybody stand up and I have people go into the 4 corners. All right, all the keepers here, the watchers here, the sparks here, and the chiefs here. And everybody's pointing at each other, go, oh my gosh, that's so you. Oh, I knew it was you. Yeah. And it's so fascinating to see the different dynamics of how people respond. And see, that's the whole point is, or one of the points, is that we've been taught for centuries that you should treat others as you want to be treated. What's fascinating is that's really not right. You should treat others as they want to be treated. As a watcher, I'm the kind of guy that needs data. You got to show me the spreadsheet, show me the numbers. If you show that to a spark, his eyes are going to glaze over. It's like, I don't care. I'm just going to go with what I feel. Yeah. You see what I mean? So that's why I also do caveman selling, because you need to learn to be able to talk to the different types and so on. So there's so many different applications of this. It's fascinating.
That makes sense. That definitely makes a lot of sense. So if we transition to, and this is somewhat related, transition to generational wealth destruction.
Yes.
And going back to the stat, 70% of the wealth has gone by generation 2, 90 by generation 3, which is astounding.
Yes.
Why does this keep happening? And even to families with the best legal and financial advice money can buy, is it related to that, going back to the caveman mentality, is it related to that? And I'd be interested.
100%. What do you think after I just described it? It makes perfect sense now, doesn't it? So exactly what I've been saying is that, yes, these family offices, the generations, they're getting the best outer game advice, trusts and estates and so forth, all the attorneys. But see, none of that is touching the inner game. So if you think about what long-term success really is, and this is what I've been teaching my clients for decades, is it's really a very simple Venn diagram. I'm such a nerd. I'm a watcher, so I love Venn diagrams, right?
Right.
So this is the simplest Venn diagram of all time. It's got inner game and outer game. So two circles that come together. Inner game is everything that happens between your ears, as I call it, the neural architecture or the caveman in the brain, right? That's the inner game. And then your outer game is all the things on the outside that you can see directly. It's right in front of you. But see, one of the things that I always say to my clients or in my keynote speeches is, what is one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? What's one area where your beliefs don't affect you? People go, I go, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you. Your beliefs affect your health, your wealth, your finances, your relationships. I mean, everything. But so going back to what I said a moment ago, that everybody is treating everybody else the way they want to be treated, which is exactly wrong. It sounds like good advice, but once you really break it down, it makes perfect sense why it doesn't work. So this is one reason why the generations are having so much trouble talking to one another, right? This is one of the biggest things that I hear from my high net worth clients and family offices is that you have the first generation that built the wealth. They're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s now, and they're ready to retire if they haven't already, and they're ready to live a nice life and enjoy the fruits of their labor. They're handing it off to the second generation, which of course has been there but didn't really build it per se. And then you have the third generation, which they don't know anything else but wealth. And so you have the first generation has a heck of a hard time talking to the third generation because they can't even relate to the other. As I like to say, it's the white hairs talking to the purple hairs. It's like, hello, what? So they're having a heck of a hard time just communicating because they grew up on different planets in a way. Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
They literally grew up in different worlds, even though they're in the same family.
Yeah.
That's what's so fascinating. So these family dynamics, there's so much going on, but it's beneath the surface. It is not, in many cases, it's not spoken of in polite company. So I come in as a mediator in many cases and a way to bridge that gap, bridge that generational gap, and really act as a translator. It's like, what, they're speaking Klingon and they're speaking Vulcan, and they're like, what? What is happening here? My nerd just came out again, didn't it? But anyway, you get my point.
That's great. Yeah.
That's really one of the ways that it's affecting a lot of people, and they just don't know it. And they're banging their head against the wall. Why can't I get through to these people? And this is one of the reasons why.
In that environment, you both bring the older generation as well as the younger generation together. What are the topics that you talk about? Is it money, or is it lifestyle? Is it mentality?
Yeah.
How do you break through? Right?
Absolutely. So this is one of the things that I've been teaching for many years, which is that money doesn't change anything. It reveals everything. Money doesn't change anything. It reveals everything. So very simply, that one of the pieces of advice that I've been giving for many years came from Warren Buffett. If you want to talk about generational wealth, not many better people to listen to than Warren Buffett. And one of the things he's known for saying is, I want to give my children enough money so they can do whatever they would like to do, but not so much that they can do nothing. Now, isn't that's
great?
A smart Warren Buffett thing to say, right? And that's a really tricky balance. It's just really hard because here we are, we have the first generation again. They built from nothing, shirt sleeves, and rolled up their sleeves and got to work and built it through hard work and sweat and all that stuff. Here we have the third generation that never had to go through anything like that. They were handed everything. And so do they feel entitled? Yeah, mostly. And is that tough to break through? Absolutely, it is. This is where I come in because it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. Everything is a very customized, bespoke operation. It's very bespoke because every family is different, even though, yeah, we're basically dealing with those 4 caveman types I just talked about. So it really is finding that balance, finding the places where we can communicate and helping each other to understand. But this is really going back to what I talked about with offense and defense. So the first generation, they were all offense, and they did a great job building that through offense. Now the defense has to come on the field because what are we going to do? How are we going to protect that from the inside out?
Yep.
And that's where the phrase the shirt sleeves comes from. Shirt sleeves, the shirt sleeves in three generations. First generation shirt sleeves, they rolled up their sleeves, they got to work. Guess what? By the third generation, it's gone and they're back in shirt sleeves they didn't want to be.
Yeah.
But that's what happens so often. That's where those numbers come from.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And then this next question, I think, is a follow-on. I think it would land really well with our audience.
Yeah.
What your clients and their advisors think is the biggest threat to wealth that maybe isn't the biggest threat after all? And what's the pattern that's really destroying these fortunes? You talked about the pattern a little bit, but
Yeah.
is there a threat that they think is in their mind that maybe
absolutely.
isn't really a threat?
Everybody is focused on outer game. It's very simple. For example, taxes, obviously the biggest one for most of us walking the earth is going to be taxes. That's going to be the biggest chunk taken out for our lifetimes.
Yep.
And of course, we all know that after you get to a certain point, the taxes start to shrink, which is weird. So it's kind of the bell curve, right? So here you have the middle class and they pay the most taxes, and then you get to the wealth and they're not really paying anything.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, hey,
yeah.
you know. So yeah, are there different structures for different areas of wealth? Obviously, yes. But nevertheless, that's just an example. So my point is that when I come in, they've been focused all on outer game. What's going to hurt us from the outside? Lawsuits, taxes, and so forth. And obviously, those are real things. You have to have all the things in place that you need. But that's the point. They already have all that. And they're still sitting there going, why am I? They're tearing their hair out. Why am I not getting through? It's because it has nothing to do with the outer game. It just doesn't. Yep. And so that's really what it comes down to. We have to, and this is a big part of, for example, a lot of people will read my books like Power Habits. You can see some of my books behind me there because I'm talking about the intersection of inner game and outer game. But you mentioned earlier that I've helped my clients net over $3 billion since 1997. 90% of that money came from inner game. It came from me helping them to master their inner game. Master, and as I call it now, tame the caveman in your brain. So you can, what they think is the problem is not the problem. It is a problem, certainly. Like I just said, you have to take care of all that stuff. But you're already doing it. And for everybody listening to this program, I would bet solid money that no one is helping you with your inner game. So think about it this way. Think about all the time, money, and effort you've spent to protect that outer game, to protect the assets, the estates, the trust. Great, you must do that 100%. But what are you doing to protect the 3 pounds of gray matter that runs the whole thing?
Yeah.
Probably nothing.
Yeah.
And that's where I come in.
Got it. That's great. Thank you for that. Let's talk about something you created called neural legacy protection. What exactly is that? How is it fundamentally different from trust and tax version of estate planning our listeners probably already know today?
Yes, absolutely. So when you go to noahstjohn.com, remember to use the caveman calculator, take the caveman quiz, all that's free. And then there's a page there called legacy protection. And there's actually another calculator on there. I'm such a nerd. I love calculators. I want you to see the numbers. What is it costing you right now to not have this in place? And so that's what I call neural legacy protection. All right. So I also call it the air readiness test, HEIR. The air. We all know what an air is, right? So the air readiness test, because of what I've been talking about this whole time, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeve. We obviously don't want to have that. Of course, we want to take care of the next generation and the generations after that. But it's a heck of a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
And again, I want to reiterate something because it's so important. It's something I've said a million times. I'll say it a million more, which is that the first generation to the second to the third and beyond, they literally didn't grow up in the same world. They just didn't. And so when you have the white hairs trying to talk to the purple hairs, there's a lot of trouble there. There's just a lot of landmines. There's a lot of landmines. So that's where I come in, is helping to get rid of the landmines. But you can do that right there on the page. Just look at on legacy protection. It's right there. And there's an outline. And by the way, you can talk to me. I would recommend you talk to me. I do have certified coaches, but you can make an appointment right there. And we will conduct what I call a neural legacy audit and look at your air readiness architecture. So again, it's the 3 pounds of gray matter that's running everything that no one is helping you with right now. They're just not, because I'm the only guy talking about this. I've written 27 books about this. And the truth is, see, I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that's a total cliche, but I grew up in this little town called Kennebunkport, Maine. which is one of the wealthiest communities in New England, in fact, in the entire country. And when you grow up somewhere, you, of course, you don't realize where you are or how it's different from every place else because it's all you've ever known. So all I knew growing up was that people around me were rich, but my family was poor.
That window too.
And I really didn't
Good
like
thing.
that. I didn't
Yes.
like being poor. I hated it because I realized, even from a young age, that money enables you to have options. It enables you to have choices in life. And when you don't
Right.
have money, you don't have choices. And so from a very young age, I was fascinated by what actually causes this thing called wealth, this wealthy community that I just happened to grow up in. And so that's really what caused my fascination with. Not I could have become a trust attorney or estate planner or something like that. But I was always much more interested in what goes on inside, what goes on in the brain, what goes on in the human being that is not obvious, that isn't on the surface. And that's why I've written all these books. And that's why I come from it the angle that I do. So frankly, it happened very organically because of how I grew up. So that's why, frankly, all the things that I'm saying really, when I help people, when I see how it changes their lives, when their eyes light up, when they cry sometimes, it's because of that. It's because it is coming from a different angle, from a different perspective, and giving them better tools that they just didn't have before.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. After taking the test, what do the test takers actually see from the air readiness test?
That's one of the, we're really going to get a really strong sense once you take that. And then that's what our neural legacy audit really is. It is, as I mentioned, it's a bespoke process that happens when me and the family or whoever the principals are will get on a Zoom just like we are right now, and I'll walk you through that process. It's not a cookie cutter. It's all bespoke and customized for obvious reasons because, as I mentioned, everybody's different. But I have a process, a framework that I've written 27 books about, and that is where we fit everybody into the framework in a way that makes sense for that person.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to get, yes, that audit, but then I'm also going to lay out exactly what the process is. And of course, we have different ways that we do that, ranging from 90 days to a year to help you to really make that transition to not only tame the caveman in the brain, but also to install, as I call it, the neural legacy architecture. It really is the architecture of the brain. That's what's really one of the things that's fascinating about the human brain. I've been talking about the caveman, it's been around 200,000 years, and that is true. So it's really very much like a computer, right? So if you have any computer, you have hardware and software. The hardware doesn't change very much. You have a MacBook, you have a PC, whatever you have. Okay, that's it. That's what you bought at the store. Mm-hmm. But you can put different types of software in there that can do different types of things. And now, of course, with AI, you can do lots of different types of things. So that's really what the neural architecture is like. It's really like the software. So that's the beauty of it. Even if you've been trained to do a certain thing for numbers of years, we can untrain and we can relearn. And in many cases, we have to unlearn. I had one of my very wealthy clients, and I was coaching him. He's one of my one-on-one clients. And this was only about 6 weeks into our coaching engagement, which was a year-long process. And he, right on video, he said, Noah, I have a degree in science from a major university. I'm not going to say the name of the university. You can go to the website and see it for yourself. The video is right there. And he said, a major university. I have a 4-year scientific degree from this major university. And what you taught me in 6 weeks is worth more than that degree. Wow. And I went, wow. Yeah. And I was actually really shocked because this particular client is not loquacious. He's not prone to give lots of praise or anything. So I was literally not ready for that. I almost fell off my chair when he said that. But I thought it was really powerful. And then what's really funny is I played that video clip for another one of my clients. And he said to me that he has degrees from Harvard and Columbia. And my coaching is just as valuable as my degrees from Harvard or Columbia. I'm like, wow, okay, you're welcome. I can save you 200 grand right there.
That's right.
Pretty amazing.
That's fantastic.
It sounds like I'm patting myself on the back here. But I mean, honestly, I was just shocked when they said these things because I'm not here fishing for compliments.
Yeah.
But it was shocking. And I really get what they're saying. We're not taught this stuff. We're just not. It took me 30 plus years of digging and reading hundreds and hundreds of books to come up with this stuff. So yeah, it is better than a degree. At least I'll take the compliment.
Yeah, thank you for those anecdotes. Those are great. Shifting gears for a second, you created something called the Freedom Lifestyle Formula.
Yes.
What exactly is that? How does that help someone building the life they want and not just a portfolio?
Yeah, this is another Venn diagram, right? It's right in my books, and you can see it there. I'm such a nerd. I love Venn diagrams. So this one is 4 circles, okay? So the 4 circles are the 4 elements of, as I call it, my freedom lifestyle formula. And the 4 circles are time, energy, relationships, and money. Time, energy, relationships, and money. So everybody listening to this program, you can actually do a very quick assessment right now. So how are you doing in the element of time on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 is I got no time. 10, hey, I got all the time. Energy, how are you feeling on energy? Scale of 1 to 10, right? 1 would be I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm angry, frustrated all the time. Not great energy. 10 is I'm happy, joyful, just smiling all the time. 10, right? Scale of 1 to 10. Then you have relationships. How are you doing in your relationships? How do you feel you are in your relationships? Now, of course, we have 2 different types of relationships. We have personal relationships and professional relationships. So you could weigh either of those. Maybe you're doing really well in one and maybe not so much the other, vice versa. So how are you doing scale of 1 to 10 in relationships? Do you have the people in your life that you really are helping you to reach your goals and feed your vision? And finally, money. Do you have the money you want? 1 would be, oh, no, I got no money. 10 is, yep, got all the money I want. And for the people who say money isn't everything, it isn't. We also have the 3 other things, right? Time, energy, relationships, and money. So what good is all the money in the world if you don't have the time, don't have the energy, you don't have the relationships? Let's face it, there's a lot of miserable millionaires out there. People who, sacrificed their relationships for money. Okay, and for some people, there's a time to do that. But then they wake up one morning and they go, gee, I made all this money and I'm all alone. Interesting. I felt a lot of people find love after a certain age. And again, this all comes back to this caveman in the sense that it is in the subconscious. It's in the unconscious. They don't realize what they're doing or why they're doing it until I bring it to their attention. I'll give you another quick example. I had one client, because he ran the numbers that I mentioned on the caveman calculator, and he'd been watching my videos and reading my books. And he said, hey, Noah, I'm excited to talk to you. And I said, okay, his name's Charles. I said, Charles, how much, just out of curiosity, how much do you think this is costing you if we really don't tame the caveman in your brain? And without batting an eye, he said $1 million. This is easily going to cost me $1 million in the next 12 months, because I realized that I'm hitting that ceiling and I have my foot on the brake and I'm doing all these unconscious things just like you talk about. I said, okay, first of all, it's very common. I talk to people every day who tell me it's costing them $1 million, $2 million, $5 million or more. So it's very common, number one. Number two, I said, why don't you just give me 10% of that million? Just give me 10%. And I will find you $1 million in the next 12 months. In other words, if you give me $1 and I give you $10 back, is that a good deal? He goes, yeah, that's a good deal. He goes, let's do it. See, high achiever, made decisions quickly and friendly, didn't dilly-dally, didn't say, oh, I got to think about it. Let me talk to my wife. He just said, let's do it. So he literally paid me 100 grand, right? That's 10% of $1 million. So I coached him one-on-one. And as the story goes, as luck would have it, I didn't actually find him $1 million in the next 12 months. Instead, I found him 1.8 million in just 10 months. So he gave me $1, I gave him $18 back. Is that a good deal? No, that's a great deal.
Yeah.
And he even emailed me and he said, hey, Noah, guess where I am? I'm on a 7-week vacation right now. He said, this is a dream I've had for 20 years. He told me that I always wanted to drive across the country with my wife in an RV, but I never had the time or the money. And he said, because of coaching with you, now I have the money. So I bought a new RV. But I also have the time. I have more time than I've ever had before. And I thought if I made more money, I had to sacrifice time. But you taught me how to have time and money using your formula. So he literally said, thank you, Noah, for changing my life. So wow. You see how that's affecting so many people without their knowledge right now. So go to the website, use the calculator, take the quiz. But most of all, let's talk. Really, let's get that neural architecture in place for you, for your family, and for the coming generations, because it is something that you just can't get anywhere else. No one else is teaching it in this way. They're just not.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you very much for those anecdotes.
Yeah,
here's a question for advisors, fund managers listening, myself included. What's one common denominator across high net worth clients that their financial advisor, whomever that might be, completely misses?
This entire interview, everything I just said, everything that came out of my mouth,
yeah.
Really. And honestly, where have you heard this before? Probably nowhere. I mean, right. Really. Is that fair to say, John, would you say?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. So that's it. And let me say something, if it's not obvious already, let me make it really obvious. This is not motivation. Okay. You get motivation on Instagram, you can get motivation on TikTok. Okay. That is bullshit, what they're saying. It's
Yeah.
mostly bullshit. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Hey, think positive and say goals. Okay. No kidding. We already knew that. No kidding. This is
Right.
not that. Literally, I wrote a book many years ago. It's right there called Permission to Succeed. This is my very first book. Came out in 1999. I know you can't see this, but right on the
Yeah.
top, it says, beyond motivation, beyond positive thinking. So I was already beyond this 30 years ago. Okay. So for everyone listening who's thinking, this is just motivation and all that stuff. No, it isn't. We pass motivation, or I pass motivation 20 miles back. Okay. So yes, you're getting so-called motivation, whatever, from all the motivational speakers. It's not that it's wrong, but it is exactly like trying to treat a heart attack by putting a Band-Aid on it. It is exactly that. Okay. So
Yeah.
motivation is at the surface. It's not that it's wrong. There's nothing wrong with a Band-Aid. When you get a cut on your finger, you want a Band-Aid. Okay. This is as serious as a heart attack. Sorry to say it that way, but this is beneath it. It is beyond it. Okay. So I just want to make that clear. And believe me, I have I would say almost all, if not all of my clients, they've already done all the motivational stuff. They've gone to all the seminars with all the big name gurus, and they're still like, okay, that was great. Now what am I supposed to do? Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Get motivated, set your goals. No kidding. We knew that. That's why I get a little worked up here because
No, that's quite okay. Thank
really
you
want
very
to
much
help
for
people.
that.
I get so annoyed that they're only getting this lousy advice. I want to help them with real advice and real help.
Yeah. We're at almost time, so I have a few follow-up questions. First of all, this rapid fire section.
Yeah.
Quick rapid fire before we wrap. So one word or one sentence answers.
Yeah.
The first one being biggest money myth you wish would die.
That all you need is outer game.
Yeah. That's great.
See previous 7,000 audiences.
The next one book besides your own,
Yeah.
every wealthy family should read.
I always quote whenever anybody asks me what my favorite book is. The book that got me into this business was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. Of
Yep.
course, a classic in self-help. And I actually had the opportunity to interview Dr. Covey before he sadly passed away several years ago. And he was a great guy, an amazing man, and really my idol and my inspiration for getting in this business. So that's the book I always go to.
Yeah, that's a fantastic book. Favorite word your clients say right before a breakthrough?
Holy shit. I never thought of that.
Yeah, love that. Love that.
Bang, light bulb.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
go, I know. That's why I'm here. That's why I get paid the big bucks.
The next one and the last one in this section is if the caveman could say one sentence to Wall Street, what would it be?
Ooh, I love that. That's really good. Stop ignoring me. I'm right here and I ain't going anywhere. And
Yep.
by the way, I'm costing you a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
So you'd actually be happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we need to tame the caveman. That's what I call it. Tame the caveman. We're not beating him up. We're not even mad at him. We just have to understand we got to work with him in order to get what we want. And frankly, stop stopping ourselves from the success, not only for ourselves, but of course, our families and the generations.
Yep. Love that. Thank you for those answers. This has definitely been one of the most different conversations we've had on the show, and honestly, one of the most important. Dr. Noah, for listeners who want to go deeper, where should they go first?
NoahSt.John.com, that's my name. And you have the Caveman Calculator and Caveman Quiz right there on the homepage. Make sure you book your Neural Legacy Audit. It's right there. It just says Legacy Protection. So just click that link right there. Legacy Protection is right there. And by the way, if you want me to speak at your event, it's very easy to remember. Just go to booknoah.com. Who should we book? Booknoah.com. Easy to remember.
Love that. Dr. Noah, thank you very much for spending time with us with the Investing for Generational Wealth audience. And to everyone listening, if this episode made you rethink what's actually protecting your family's wealth, share it with the person you trust most with your with your money and your family conversations. We'll see you next week on Investing for Generational Wealth. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Noah. Bye-bye.